storytelling, and gratitude. We will have our keynote presentation. Many of you were here last year as we were led in deep self-reflection by Dr. Brown to probe our understanding of equity and the impact that this work has in our own thinking and worldview and in our work with our students. But for those of you who weren't here with us last year, I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to Dr. Brown and his thought-provoking, compelling work with us. While last year was about orienting ourselves to the work, a culture of love, and allowing ourselves the precious time it takes to be reflective and thoughtful about the relationships we've forged with our students, this year we're going to build on those ideas and begin to move into action. With Dr. Brown's patient guidance with us last year, we're now able to build momentum toward realizing a vision for our students, one that includes their stories and fuses our hopes with their dreams. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Luvelle Brown.
Thank you, thank you. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. What joy is in the room. Hey, let me tell y'all right now, I'm a superintendent. We're gonna be doing our convocation next week. And I realize now I need to step my swag game up. Those service awards are awesome. Thank you for sharing. Thank you all for being here. So you've been sitting for about 45 minutes. I want y'all to do something for me real quick. In a second, I'm gonna say go, and you're gonna stand up, and you're gonna find at least 3 people. 3. All right, I know some of y'all are like, oh, I'm already uncomfortable. Yes, you're gonna have to get up and move, all right? And you're gonna find someone that you have not spoken to today, and you're gonna say thank you for being here. See, for the social-centric learners like myself, you're gonna love what we're gonna do right now. For the folks who are stationary learners, who would like to come in and sit down in the same place, you're feeling real uncomfortable. And you know what? That's how I felt every day in school, all right? So if you only got 2 minutes though while we hook up, find at least 3 people and say thank you for being here. And also do this, affirm something. Don't just go up and say thank you for being here and keep walking. Say, I love your shirt. Oh, that was awesome that you got a service award. You look especially radiant today. Now, don't do anything inappropriate now. We got a new superintendent. We don't need any hugs and any harassment complaints, but just say something to affirm somebody that you're seeing today. Everybody got the directions here? I'm only going to do this for about 60 seconds. Everybody, go, find somebody.
You're reading my mind. I'm just going to strike it out of the way so that you can have it. Let me get this. And the only other question is, do we want to take the adapter off? Because you do have an HDMI.
Oh, I can do an HDMI? Yeah, let's do that.
Let's just see if that makes that happen.
Have a shadow. About 30 seconds, 30 seconds. No, I don't. Uh-oh, you know what? Yeah, let's take it out for a second. And let me get in here. Screen, how you do screen? General. You know how to do the screen here?
Displays.
Display. And we want to do, I forget what I do here.
Let's do this and see if it's, as long as it doesn't switch us.
About 15. We got to somehow get it over there. Go to Apple Display or... Oh, yeah, drag it over, arrange them. There you go, arrange. Oh, there.
If we go to leave it on
All right, when I say move your feet, you say back to my seat. Move your feet back to my seat. Move your feet back to my seat. Thank you, thank you. Yes, we actually like each other. Thank you. Thanks for doing that. This is going to be the best academic school year ever. I love that you're framing it around storytelling. It gave me an opportunity to do some research around storytelling. Why does it work? Who does it best? Why would an organization like yours use storytelling? I'm so happy that y'all asked me to come back. Last year, for the folks who were in the room last year with me and for the opening, thank you. It was therapeutic. I don't know if folks remember, but I had an opportunity to talk about where I was in my journey. After 30 years, and yes, I'm older than I look. I've been doing this 30 years now. And I was in year 30. And I found myself here in the long 6-hour drive up. I was in reflection mode about what have I done. I became an educator. Like many of you, I became an educator to change the world. The gentleman who offered me an academic scholarship to go to the University of Virginia did not want me to be a teacher. They tried to talk me out of doing it, but I said, my mama said it, and I said we would change the world. And when I came here last year with y'all, I remember thinking about, have I done that? In you, your energy, the conversations we had allowed for me to go deeper. And I want to share about, last year I was in beta form, and it took me a year to process. What have we done over 30 years? Because last year I shared with you data that showed that, student achievement-wise, we haven't done very much. It's pretty much flat. And I can now affirm, if you look at the data, the NAEP scores and other standardized assessment scores in our industry, some could argue that the data's gotten worse for kids of color and those living in poverty. So I was thinking, over 30 years, what have we done? And then I share with you the survey data from my school district and the national data around what's happening in schools. Morale was low, pay is not good, administrators are losing their minds. I wrote about that when I was a first-year student in the ed program. We're still talking about administrators. We talked about student discipline and managing behaviors and how behaviors in classrooms had never been worse back in 1992 when I wrote about it. As a student who was entering into college, being labeled as at risk. Remember we used to use that label to label kids, at-risk student. I was one. Behaviors had never been worse. Anyway, I'm saying all this, y'all, because last year when I was here, I was like, what have we done to change the narrative? Data. But knowing that what we do changes and saves lives, knowing that what we do can change the world, but was it? See, I went deeper this last year. See, I love Barack Obama. Did y'all see Barack Obama speak last week? Oh man, he reminded me of what it's like for somebody to share in such ways. See, I went deep over the last year. Y'all are catching me near having gone and read a lot over the last year, written a lot. I went to some texts that helped me process and helped my team process. We found, if you haven't read, They Came for the Schools. They Came for the Schools. It really processes what's happening in our country right now around public education. And they highlight a school district, one school district, and the school board meetings and how folks are trying to disrupt the curriculum and books and teaching and learning. But see, then I partnered with a friend and we wrote The Call to Courage, where we spent 3 chapters unpacking what's happened in public education over the last 100 years. And how that last 100 years has been a bit of a time loop. We keep repeating the same mistakes. We keep having the same conversations, minus a few words. My board president in Ithaca, he's been on the board for 16 years. He has a PhD in public policy. He's a historian, an archivist. He wrote his dissertation was on public schools, particularly public schools in Ithaca, New York. And he wrote about wait for it, a time loop. A qualitative analysis he did showed that we've been having the same conversations in Ithaca and across the country for over 100 years. And we wonder why things haven't changed for everybody. See, I share all that because, I'm in a town. I can't tell any stories or give any strategies for improvement unless I ground it in a significant amount of academic literature and research. So I'm here to share with y'all right now. I've done the work over the last year to present be key for us. And I'm going to present to you some things that we can do because, we've been reflecting for a long time, thinking about what's happening, what's not happening, who we are. Now it's time to do something. And so I'm going to present to you all some things that we can do. I'll remind us why we come together. I shared this image last year, this slide last year. I'm going to remind folks, this is it. This is the work. If ever asked on one page, what is it that we all should be thinking about as we come back to school this year? If we were to come up with a portrait of a graduate, a strategic plan, I would present to you having pulled together some of the best people in the world who are thinking about portraits of a graduate, strategic plans. This is what they would say. That we are here, we are coming back together. We're professionals to reduce the predictability of who succeeds and who fails. We should not be saying that the data is the same. We should be saying that every child who comes through the door has access and opportunities and will achieve. Your child, my child, the young people who have been traditionally marginalized. That is what we should be doing. Our community expects us to do that. We're professional educators. We should be solving problems. That's reducing the predictability. In order to do that now, I would present to y'all, now I'm even tighter than I was last year. We know what to do. If you come to the session this afternoon, I'm going to give you example after example of things we know work in schools. The things we know we should be doing tomorrow. There's not some grand experiment we should be conducting, y'all. Y'all feel me? It's been done before. We know what to do, but we have to do it. And then that last one, joy and genius. There are a lot of folks writing about storytelling and, more importantly, joy and genius. How every one of the young people, every one of you, I just saw joy for 90 seconds when we asked y'all to go say hi to somebody else. Y'all feel? How do we engineer an opportunity for everybody to feel and experience joy every single day? Even those folks who didn't want to stand up, I saw you feel some joy. How do we put that into the curriculum? How do we put that into all systems? How do we put that into what young people are eating? And how do we recognize that all young people are geniuses? And see, this is where I typically will pause. And if we were in a virtual environment, I would ask you to turn your cameras on or turn them off. Because this is where it gets real. If you don't believe that every one of the young people and every one of the adults in here are geniuses, then you're in the wrong business. I had to say to a superintendent who's struggling right now to do the work and is not connecting with the folks in the organization and all. I was like, do you like the people you serve? And he paused. You can't lead people if you think they suck. Y'all still with me? I love y'all. I've been superintendent now going into my 15th year. And let me be clear, as a superintendent, every year you make angry about 10% of the people. Let me be clear, I'm making people angry twice now. And over time, the resistance is fierce, but I still love them. I get up every day excited to go in there. And the young people we serve deserve that from you too. You see, that's the work. If you're ever wondering what we call it, you can call it whatever you want. Some districts are calling it portrait of the graduate work. Some people are calling it strategic planning. Some people are calling it continuous improvement. Kentucky. Some people are calling it equity work. On your website, you still have an anti-racist policy. I would offer up that it's anti-racism work too. That's what we're doing. And see, I'll put in front of you some more text for the organizational theorists in the room. if you're wondering, how do we take a room full of people like this, in the midst of a superintendent transition, in the midst of budget crises? We're having the same issues in our community too. In the midst of all the other challenges happening all over the country and the world, how do you bring people together to do this work? As I've said earlier, we know how. See, y'all gonna be mad because I've done all this last year. Y'all helped me now. Y'all put me on this journey. Last year when I was standing here, I was hoping we would do the right thing, to start the transition, to be tighter. Now I know what we need to do. And see, it's in the research. Peter Singay, Sir Giovanni, Margaret Wheatley, these folks have been writing about how organizations like ours come together to do the impossible and to do it in a sustainable way. I'm here to share with you how to do it, because what the data and the research says very clearly is that we are a complex, autonomous organization, otherwise known as an adaptive system. I'm hoping everybody would agree with me that this is a complex organization. Everything from purchasing to feeding more, serving more meals than any other restaurant in the area probably, transporting more people than any other transportation agency in the region. This is complex, and help young people learn. So a complex adaptive system, we survived a pandemic, we're surviving a budget cut. You have to adapt. You do that if everybody is working in an autonomous way. Like, everybody in here is different. This is a very diverse group. I've learned a lot about y'all. You come from different backgrounds, different religious backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. You're just a diverse group. How do we now get everybody in here working in a way where we are inseparable and working towards the same goal? I'm here to tell y'all, if not doing that, we won't meet the needs of our learners. This is how we do it. You see, I'm going to share with you, that's the definition. A complex adaptive system, this organization, independent autonomous organism. Everybody in here is an independent organism. And I'm asking that we work in an inseparable way to do the impossible. Stay with me now, because that bottom line is what's going to drive the next 35 minutes. We must operate using some simple rules. We got to make the complex very simple. And it's my job right now to help you understand how to make this complex very simple. See, the people who are writing about how to do this, they used to study organizations, schools. They used to study Fortune 500 companies. Now they're focusing on, and the science teachers are going to like this, nature. Because the best complex adaptive systems are also called superorganisms. Impress your neighbors on Friday, y'all, when y'all go say, we're a superorganism, all right? Y'all feel me? All right. Because a superorganism is something that operates in a very complex way. There was a fire ants right there, but here are some other ones right here. Check it out. I geek out over this stuff right here. You got those birds in the top left corner. See the fish to the right? See, these superorganisms are operating in an inseparable way. They're independent. See, you're talking about hundreds of thousands, if not a million plus organisms working together. Wouldn't it be cool if humans could do that? Well, we could. See, they did it at Daytona, not Daytona, that was Talladega. Anybody watch NASCAR? My daddy brought me up on NASCAR. So Talladega, they set a world record not long ago for the biggest wave in history. How did they do it? Following simple rules. The directions were, when the person next to you stands up, you sit down. They did the impossible. Now those animals that you see up there doing those cool things, check it out. They got simple rules. Equal distance apart, same direction, and avoid predation. If you do that, you win, you survive. You gotta do all three though, in an ongoing way. Everybody knows what they're doing. I hope y'all still with me. Some of y'all been looking the same way since I started. I'm gonna go back here, I'm gonna start over here, I'm gonna go all the way around. Tell your face that you're happy, go. Y'all still with me. This is complex but fun stuff. When we're talking about taking an organization and doing something that's never been done before. I'm here to present to y'all that the simple rules that we should be following in order to be a complex adaptive system and to be the best storytellers ever. Storytellers that will change the world will be to reflect, self-reflect, engage in conflict. And now, I'm already preparing for Ithaca right now. We can't use the word conflict there. We're going to have to use intellectual friction. Because, conflict is too hard for some people. Constructive conflict, not destructive. There is a difference. Look at public comment sessions across the country right now. That's destructive. But constructive is we're going to build some capacity. We're going to engage in a hard dialogue, in a hard conversation. We will challenge one another. We will love one another. We will build something where there wasn't anything before. That's conflict. And sometimes it takes years to get to that last one, which is policy. And in a minute, we're going to define what we mean by policy. Wait for it. It's for everybody. The people who are writing about organizational change and doing the impossible say that it requires a culture change. Everybody still with me? You got to change the culture in order to do something that's impossible. But the culture cannot change until the policy changes first. All right, we just gave y'all strategic planning 101 in 20 minutes. Everybody still with me so far? All right. We just did it. I saved you the 2-week course. But see, now, what does that mean? In a second, I'm going to just have you turn and talk briefly about, but take this to your department meeting, take this to your grade level meeting, take this home to your dinner table, take this to church, take this wherever you want. But in a second, I'm going to be asking you to really start to think about reflection in a deeper way than what we've done before. What will be your legacy? If you're talking about storytelling, somebody's going to tell your story one day. You will tell your story one day. What will it be? I really had to sit with this one. What will your legacy be? Hey, what will the families you serve say about you? And see, someone helped me with this one this year. I have stopped with those 2 questions, and someone asked me to think about that last one. What will the most marginalized in your community say about you? The young people growing up in poverty who have been struggling in our schools for generations. What would they say about you? The young people of color who've been excluded from schools for over 100 years. The curriculum, the instructional pedagogies, the policies. What would they say about you, Mr. Superintendent? For 60 seconds. Turn and talk, just react to it, or share the answer to one of those questions to somebody right next to you. Go, quick. About 30 seconds, 30 seconds. All right, when I say bring it, you say back, bring it, bring it. Thank you. The first simple rule is self-reflect. I've asked you to reflect individually first. Over time, we will reflect as an organization. Who are you? What will your legacy be? See, if we were in a smaller group, we would ask folks to spontaneously respond right now about how you felt doing that, or share something. I don't know about doing that with about 200 people in it, 300 people in the room, all right? But that's your reflection. Write about it. Think about it. Who are you? What would they say about you? See, I've been doing this and writing in my journal every night for the last year, answering these questions and processing these questions. And finally, frankly, I've come up with some receipts. I want to model for y'all now my self-reflection, conflict, and my policy work. And reflection, I know I've actually talked to them this year. I did some focus group work. They would say, Dr. Brown, you cultivated joy. We didn't always agree with you. Sometimes we were angry with you, but at the end of the day, you modeled joy, and you gave us opportunities to experience joy in the curriculum, in the ways in which we work with one another, in the books we purchased, in the classes we offered. Joy. I know that the young people in my school district and the families, when they're not angry with me, are going to say, I'm a joyful person and I cultivated joy. That's my legacy. What's yours? You see, and let's get to this next one here. Conflict. I shared constructive conflict. I would present to y'all, and I shared this last year in the workshops and then when we were together as a large group. Here are the things we should be doing now. These are the things, I heard it during your committee report outs. You're doing the work. I would ask and challenge you to go deeper. How will the learning space be representative of everyone? How will, when young people get on the bus, when they go through the lunch line, when they walk through the halls, when they walk into your classrooms, how will they see themselves showing up in that space? How will it help them cultivate joy? How will the curriculum shift? What you put on their desk tomorrow. Think about as you're planning this week, or last week, and the young people are coming this week, right? What are you going to put in front of them tomorrow, the next day? How will you engineer joyful opportunities for them and others? How will you how will you make sure they explore their histories and the histories of others? See, I'm asking you to now write it down, plan for it, practice it, and do something. We can't just reflect all the time about what we should be doing. We got to now do something. And I heard today you have the leadership and the artifacts and receipts already. You see, and then I'll push you on this one too. This is what helped me again this year, more so than ever. How will we partner with the young people we serve to do all of this? There are many educators in Ithaca, when we start that first week of school, are going to turn over the classroom relationship building, the culture building, where they're going to go to young people. They're going to just spend the first week just building relationship and having young people co-construct where they're going to go and how they're going to go there and the pacing. As a former kindergarten teacher who had to plan everything out and was I had all the power, I really struggled with it. Y'all still put me? I'm going to let them determine what we're going to do this first semester? See, ask yourselves as you're reflecting, how have you included students in the construction of what you're doing? And how will you do it more? How will you give them voice and agency? That's the friction, y'all. This can take days, months, years. It's ongoing. And then there's this one. See, if we're doing these things over and over and over again, we will achieve the impossible. Access and opportunities for everybody. And this is what makes it sustainable, irrespective of who is here. What superintendent, what teacher, what bus driver, no matter who's here, the work will continue. But let me define it now. What do we mean by policy? Because see, typically when I say policy, half of the people shut down. Well, that's not for me. That's for the board or the superintendent. I must correct you. See, the definition of a policy is a habitual action done unto someone or something. And each one of us has a hand in a policy. And you got to remember that every one of these, and I'm going to give you a list of them in a second, and some of them will shock you. I never thought about that as a policy. It's always doing something. And you must ask as part of that reflection, what is it doing? It's never neutral. I was trained to be an administrator, and when people talked about policy, they said, hey, policies are there to keep you out of trouble. Policies are there when someone messes up. They're just neutral when they're written best. That's just wrong. If anybody wants to challenge me. Now you're talking to somebody who's been doing a deep dive for the last year. Y'all feel me? So just come to me with your data and your research. But I'm here to tell y'all that every one of our policies is either exasperating or perpetuating what we say we want to change, or it's mitigating or eliminating it. See, examples. Hope you can see this. educator in this room is going to be doing something related to the things on the screen over the next couple of days and weeks. You're going to be putting together your syllabus, your handbooks. You're going to be sending out stuff to your families. You're going to be making recommendations for enrollment. You're going to be assessing in some way. You're going to be planning for celebrations. We had some hard conversations in Ithaca last year around which holidays would we be celebrating. And there is no policy in our Board of Education manual. It was all school-based, even down to the individual classroom. And some folks hadn't even thought about how it was contributing to or exasperating or mitigating or eliminating the inequities. I hope something on the screen connects with somebody in the room. And I hope everyone in the room takes at least one thing on the screen to take on this year with a new perspective. Or even take on these. See, these are the ones that tend to get boards flipped and superintendents fired. Y'all feel me? Let's take on code of conduct or grading, field trips, special education, meal purchasing. Like these are the big ones. And when taking those on, you got to know that it's going to either eliminate some of these issues or contribute to them continuing. Policy. You see, self-reflection, conflict, and policy. I'm going to now ask you to think about it through the lens of love. Is your school handbook loving? Is it trusting? Is it forgiving? Is it patient? Is that approach to standardized assessment, the ways in which you're going to assess young people next week, is it loving? See, this afternoon we're going to go deep into, right now I'm just sharing with you the ways in which I want you to look at it. I'm going to go this afternoon deep into how we're currently doing it. So when I say that love is not the default and it's the struggle, I can now give you artifacts and receipts to show how. That as school districts, we don't do this well when we think about all of our policies. See, y'all asked me to come back now. I told y'all I was going to go deeper. See, we've been reflecting for more than a year. Now I'm asking us to go deep into the conflict. This is that feeling you have right now, the one I have right now, as I think about the things that I perpetuate every day and how it's not so loving and how it needs to be different. I feel uncomfortable. That's the conflict. And I'm asking us to do that in an ongoing way. See, when we tell these stories, when we talk about our legacy, it's going to give a sense, and this is where I struggled last year. When I was here, I was talking about where I've been, but I failed to recognize the small wins and the gains and the progress. So when you tell a story, you can note and recognize the gains, and then you can also use that story to talk about where you still have to go. Everybody still with me with a good story? See, my mom and daddy taught me how to tell stories. Y'all could probably, at this point in my life, I'm a good storyteller because every night before bed, we had to tell a story. And they would always say, it has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. But it also has to talk about where you've been and where you're going. So we had to do it every night. And I'm here to present to y'all right now a prompt that you can use with young people, with your department, your grade level, to begin to tell your story. You see, in a second, I'm gonna test y'all in a minute because I take this from the folks at Disney. I'm doing some work with the folks at Disney right now, and they're big. If you can't tell, Disney's good about storytelling. And I'm a little cheap. Some inside information. This is how they frame every story, whether it's Nemo, Toy Story, Black Panther, every movie. Wait for it. Now you're going to all go back and get Disney Plus tonight. I'm going to check them all out. They all have the same stem. And I'm giving it to you right now because I want you today to write your story using the stem. And again, this morning when I was up, I'm not going to tell you what time I was here, but when I was here, I wrote my story. And because the folks at Disney would say, you must be able to do it within 60 or 90 seconds. That's the challenge. Can you sell or tell your story with only 60 or 90 seconds of prep time? And then tell it as if it's an elevator pitch. Everybody get that? Because when the parents come in for the open house, when you see somebody in the produce section of the grocery store, when you walk into the workshop, somebody's going to ask you about your story, and you got to be able to tell it with very little prep time. I did mine this morning, so I'm going to model for y'all. Again, you're going to have to do it in a second. Once upon a time, students were excluded. I'm talking about Ithaca, New York right now. Students were excluded, marginalized, and not represented in the instructional strategies, the learning spaces, or the curriculum. Every day, students were suspended for non-compliance. They were failed using standardized assessments and bad grading practices. And they were disempowered because they never saw themselves show up anywhere. And then one day, a new Board of Education, a young superintendent, and an entire team of staff and educators came together around some simple rules and a common unified vision 14 years ago. And then, because of that, the school district and schools became more restorative, became culturally responsive, and the curriculum was more representative of the student body, which was diverse. And see, because of that, the student achievement skyrocketed. The achievement gaps were closed. Instruction became better. The school district won awards, and the resistance was fierce. People wanted them to stop it. Until finally, because of the policies that had been changed, even though the superintendent, the board, and many of the educators all transitioned to retirement or something else, the anti-racist school district was sustained. Y'all see that? I'm sorry to read to y'all because I rarely read, but I just wrote it this morning. I've been reflective about my legacy. I am bald and shorter because of the conflict. And now I can speak to, and I gave y'all examples of things that we've changed, policies that have shifted. And you know what happens next? We do it all over again. A quick 90-second to turn, and if you want to say to somebody, no way in the world I could do that, or if you already have your story written for the type A folks in the room, that's why I read it so slow, or if you just want to sit with what I've just shared, turn and talk, go. We may finish this a little bit early, like 5 or 10 minutes. Is that okay? All right, cool. All right. Okay. About 30 seconds. About 10. All right. When I say whoop, you say there it is. Whoop. Whoop. All right. They even know that in Vermont. I love it. Yes, I am going to ask. I wasn't going to ask, but I know there's at least 1 or 2 people in here who want to share their story. If not, I'm going to look really bad, and this is going to be awkward. But I hope that there is 1 or 2. My man, see, you employee of the year. That's what's up. Yeah.
Once a time, there was a little boy who grew up in Massachusetts. And he wasn't just a little boy, he was the littlest boy. He was the physically smallest in any group he was in, team he was on, or class he was in. Every day he lacked a ton of self-belief. He dealt with that through anger and treating other people with lack of generosity. One day he found fitness. Because of that, he started to enhance his self-belief. He started to see the world differently. He started to treat other people differently and treat himself differently. Because of that, he continued on his fitness journey, and the fitness journey perpetuated into a better version of the little boy. Till finally one day he decided he was going to make it his life mission to share fitness to try to improve the lives of other people in the same way it improved his.
Am I the only one who's about to cry? That was beautiful, bro. Someone else want to share? Hard one to follow.
So the other day, I did this rather lengthy post on Facebook, which kind of shared my story. Some of you who know me know that I was an absolute animal in high school. And it was quite opposite, actually, because teachers didn't allow me to learn. I ended up where I am today. I was constantly in the office because I wasn't on a plan, and it led to me dropping out of high school. I got my GED. I traveled to the Caribbean. I pursued my dream of being a chef. From there, I jumped ship and went to college, got my associate's degree, pursued an awesome career in culinary arts where I came upon this job. And my whole life, I pointed at this job after, not my whole life, but after I graduated from college. And actually, OC took the job. But the job was in the newspaper, and I said, one day I'm going to be there because I'm never going to allow a kid to be treated like I was in high school. So that's why I became a teacher. But this whole journey has brought me a lot further than I've ever thought. And the long story is that I think that kids that come into my classroom are treated fairly, and they're treated with the respect and love that they deserve, because I refuse to let anybody give up.
Wow. Wow. I don't know where to go from there. Is there anybody who's not an employee of the year who wants to do it real quick? This may be the way to get the award next year, hint, hint. Going once, going twice. Hey, y'all, that's the word. We're family now. Last year was great for me to be here. Thank you for bringing me in, and to bring me back speaks to love. You may have forgiven me for something I said that may have made you angry. You are patient with my non-linear thinking approaches to the work. You're trusting that I'm going to work hard to bring to you the latest research in contemporary thinking and artifacts. So I can go on and list the ways in which I feel love from you, and I want you to feel that love back from me. I have one more quote. See, it was fun to look up all the quotes around storytelling to connect to my thinking around this year. I'll leave you with this one. If you're going to tell a story, tell a big one, an unprecedented one that's never been told before. Katie, I appreciated you talking about your mama. And culturally, we embrace, and y'all heard me talk about my ancestors and elders a lot too. They're a big part of us. We carry them. We honor them. It took me 50 years to realize this, but my mama's legacy, she didn't leave house, money. She did this work for 46 years and finished making $12,000. We grew up in poverty because she committed to working in schools. Let's just sit with that. With 4 kids. So Lucille did this work every day, 2 knee replacements, and when she passed, people came from all over the country, generations, 4 generations we counted, to talk about how she taught them to read. And she passed, and she had nothing but us to show for it. She would say we found her writings this summer. My mama was something else now. She hid stuff all through the house. It took my daddy years to find some things he had been looking for to handle some business. And this summer we finally found her reflections on her legacy. And she wrote, it was one word, or two words, my babies. She didn't leave us no money. We had none. House, cars, none of that. But she left the world us. And the last thing she said to me, it was a big story. See, she would go to board meetings every Tuesday night. Some of y'all have heard me tell a story. Board of supervisor meeting because funding was being cut. As a school district that was trying to do things for every kid, because she was at every board meeting saying, you must. And when they started to do it, they just cut the funding. Y'all heard about that story? It's happening in the country right now. As we try to provide access and opportunities for everybody, the resistance will be fierce, and the first place they will go after books and instruction and standards will be the money. So we'll cut the funding. That way it'll stop. So my mama, she knew what was happening. She watched it happen. She went to the board meetings to advocate for more money, for access and opportunities. And it took me until she passed to realize what she was doing. See, this work is ongoing. If you think that you're going to tell a story today and everything's going to be fixed, you're wrong. Y'all feel me? It's going to take time. It's going to take years. I talked about in my story the transitions. If we're an organization of independent, autonomous organisms operating in an inseparable way, it doesn't matter who's in this room. That's why I went to my board this last spring and said, I am done in a few years because y'all need to hear from a different coach soon. Some people were very happy. Some people are still writing letters hoping that I would renegotiate a contract. Y'all still with me? But my time is done because the good organizations, the healthy ones, transition leadership. And the work continues. If you're operating using simple rules, self-reflect, conflict, and change policies. And see, this is the last thing I'll leave. I'll leave you with her voice and her words. I won't survive this. I won't see the end. She would call herself an anti-racist before that word was cool, and then it was not cool, but she was calling herself anti-racist before people knew what it was. But she always called herself an abolitionist too. She was trying to abolish the practices that she knew were contributing to young people dying or failing. So she was going to abolish them. That's why she called herself an abolitionist. But she would always say, and I'm saying it to y'all, I won't see the fruits of my labor. I will not see the end to this work. It's going to take years, more like 100. But what I hope I've done is inspired somebody to take my place when I'm gone. I'm going to leave here today. Hopefully I'm invited back. But I'm going to leave here today, and y'all got to work. At some point, I'm going to leave Ithaca. I'm going to leave this industry, and I hope somebody's going to take my place when I'm gone. Thanks for having me, Katie, Julia. I love you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. It's really powerful. Appreciate you. So now we are going to take a break. And just to remind you of the rest of the agenda for today, we'll break. At 11 o'clock, you'll start your first workshop. So check out your sign-up sheet to see what you signed up for first. We'll have lunch. Lunch will be an hour from 11:45 to 12:45. Then we'll transition to the next workshop in the afternoon. We'll have another break, and then there will be our Community Connection Fair. One more note that the exit ticket is linked to the agenda, but I'll send it out again at the end of the day just to remind you that it's there. We appreciate your feedback. Thank you all for being here. Have a nice break.
Hallway. There are a lot of good sessions being offered right now, but I got to tell y'all picked the best one to come to. You signed up for the best one so far. Thank you for coming back. Hey, that was heavy. Thank y'all for being in the space to allow me to reflect in that way. Thoughts, questions? This is your session. I have some content I want to get to, but we don't have to get to any of it if y'all have questions or other things y'all want to talk about. So now we can have some real fun. I'm not being recorded this time, right? Yeah. So thoughts, reactions, questions, some things y'all want to make sure we do these 45 minutes, anything that's on your heart or your mind. Hey. I think the real quote, I don't know if I said it on camera, you can't lead people if you think they suck. So that's it. And there's some research, there's people who are writing about that. Ineffective leaders don't like the folks they're leading. And effective ones, and you're all leaders, effective leaders and community members. And see, and it goes even deeper. You're critical of the organization. And I'm not saying not to be critical of the organization, not to send emails to the superintendent. You're doing that because you love the place. So when you truly love someone and you truly love a place, you're going to be engaged. And sometimes that level of engagement is rebellion. But it's coming from a place where you can't just reflect and just dump on someone. You got to then be a part of the solution. That's the big part there. I think that's what's happening in our industry right now. A lot of folks want to point to how it's messed up, or you're not doing what you should be doing. The 3 minutes of public comment, I'm going to come and just publicly shame you. And then when it's time to build something different or to work on solutions, they go missing. Y'all know those folks? Like, if you truly love the place, be critical and engage, and then be a part of the solution. That's going to require you to love it, not hate it. Thanks for that. Hey. Yeah. They don't learn from you unless they know you care first. I did hear one of my high school teachers said in a public meeting with us, I spend the first few weeks of school making sure everybody understands the rules. I don't care if they don't like me. I'm like, what? Really? I think that's backwards. Y'all have heard those teachers, but I'm going to spend the first couple of weeks establishing who's in charge and the rules and order, and then we'll get to content. Like, that's just, I don't know who made that up, but that's not true. Hey. Differentiation. It's also the power of both and thinking instead of either or. So both things can be true at the same time if we're truly loving. Other thoughts, reactions, questions? Hey. And that was the thesis I was working on in real time in front of y'all. I think the application is the reflection, friction, and policy. So if we think about everything we do with that lens or those simple rules or that game plan, that is telling a story. Because no story can be told unless you're reflecting on who you are and where you've been. And no story can be told without some type of action to build something new. And no story is good unless there's a hero or some sustainable approach to the work that you've been a part of impacting. Everybody, again, we're building this together. We're constructing a working theory that's grounded in a lot of other theory, but for us in schools who haven't worked like this, I'm presenting that, yeah, the story is the reflection, conflict, and the policy. Hey.